Welcome, everybody, to Witchcraft Radio on United Pagan Radio, WUPR DB. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a treat for us tonight, deviating from our normal drilling the craft into everybody out there. We're going to take a break and we're going to talk to Nick Mason. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. He is a musician and a fellow brother in the craft. So let's start this right out of the gate with talking about what you're doing right now. You've got a new album out, right?
Yeah. I work for a lot of different musical groups, and one of them has a new album. It's coming out next week, actually, on the 15th is when the first single will hit radio. It's a band called Desert Dragon. They're out of Los Angeles, California, and we've spent a good chunk of the last year and a half putting together a collection of songs, and they're finally done and finally going to be released. And I've gotten to hear the full album for the very first time just in the last couple days, and it turned out really, really good. I'm very excited about it.
Awesome. What instruments do you play?
I'm a drummer. I primarily play, traditional drum set kind of thing, but I do all kinds of percussion and stuff like that. I've done plenty of work doing hand drums and native instruments and stuff like that too. So anything percussion related is comfortable for me.
That is quite a coincidence. Not only are Nick and I both drummers, but we all are both from Buffalo.
Exactly, which is amazing that the show is coming out of Buffalo, where I grew up. I love it.
Any tour dates? Are you going to be touring with Desert Dragon?
Desert Dragon has a couple of shows set up for next month. We're headlining some sort of motorcycle and classic car show that Jay Leno's putting on, and then the following week we're going to be playing with Asia.
Really?
And yeah, we're going to be playing with Asia. The bands they do a lot of work where they're the opening act for much larger groups. We played with Blue Oyster Cult, we played with Great White, and a lot of the 70s and 80s classic rock bands. That band Desert Dragon kind of has that classic rock 70s 80s kind of sound, and so we get paired with those groups a lot. I know they're planning on touring once the album comes out next week. They're planning on hitting the road, but they kind of want to wait to see where the radio push is. We have a couple of different agents that are working with radio stations some in the Northeast, some in the Southwest. So whatever markets pick it up the best is where they're going to set up the tour dates for that. And then other than that, over the course of the next couple of months, I'm playing a lot of local stuff in Southern California with various groups and bands and stuff like that I work for, mostly rock bands and stuff, but some pretty good shows, aside from Asia. I'm going to be playing the Staples Center next month with a group, and
wow.
It'll be, there's some fun stuff over the course of the next couple of months anyway.
Now, before we get into your past musical history or anything like that, before I forget totally and blow this interview completely, your website, is that nickmason.org?
It is.
Is that where they can find your tour? Right. Is that where they can find any tour dates or the news of what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of, I tried to set up the website so I don't ever have to touch it ever again. Tour dates are automatically posted on there as they become confirmed. They're usually posted within 24 hours of the confirmation. So anything that's up there right now is set in stone. There's also, music videos right on there, and streaming audio and all kinds of stuff from the dozens of groups that I work for on a yearly basis.
All right, that gets us right into my next big question for you, is what other groups have you played for?
That's a loaded question. I, on average, play for about 10 to 15 different groups every year. I'm a freelance musician. I'm not
You're a gun for hire.
Particular band. I am, and I like it that way. It keeps things fresh. It keeps me on my toes. So it fluctuates. It changes all the time. I might play with one band for a month, and then not work with them ever again, or not work with them for another 6 months or whatever. So I guess currently on my calendar, the groups that I'm playing for are Desert Dragon, which has a new album out. I'm playing this Monday with an artist from Italy named Alex Cole, and his stuff is kind of classic rock, very AC/DC inspired. After that, I'm playing with a group called Chain Flower, and they're like a Led Zeppelin, Stone Temple Pilots kind of mashup with a female lead singer. And then I'm doing some dates with a group called Street Drum Corps, who I've been playing for the last 4.5, 5 years, I think now. And that's a percussion group. So it's like, no guitars, no bass, no nothing like that, no singers. It's all drummers. And it's like the Blue Man Group meets Nine Inch Nails is the easiest way to describe that.
Awesome.
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
What's your musical background like? And I know from being a musician here in Buffalo, there's not a whole hell of a lot of places to play here in the city. So did that affect you and your desire or your idea to move to Los Angeles?
It was a big factor in it. I grew up taking drum lessons in school when I was a kid. I think I started taking lessons when I was about 10. And then when I got to high school is when I switched from like the full band and orchestra thing to drum set, and I started taking private lessons with John Fatta, who owns and runs the Buffalo Music School. And played in a lot of local bands over the years, and some of them did better than others. Some of them never saw the light of day, and other ones would do little regional or small national tours and then kind of fizzle. And I got to a point where I was, there wasn't a lot of studio work in town, and anybody who needed like a session drummer, I would get the call for, which was great, but it was very far and few between. And I was fortunate enough to play every major venue possible in town. I played the baseball field. I played at First Niagara Center. And every little bar, every medium-sized theater, every major venue, Darien Lake, all of them. And after you play Darien Lake and after you play First Niagara Center, you're like, okay, you played the 20,000 seater in town. What's next? What's left? There's nothing left, really. So
right.
It's go and try and dominate a larger market. And that was when I made the decision. I was flying out to L.A. a couple times a year anyway, playing gigs for, little local bands in L.A. that would just fly me out from Buffalo. And I hate flying. So I just decided I'm just going to move. I'm really sick of the winters, and shoveling snow was something I was not a fan of ever. And let's go to where the music industry mecca really is and give it a shot here. And so far so good. I've been out here 5.5, almost 6 years now, so I can't complain.
Nice.
It's working out.
Yeah. We were talking right before the show started about some of the bands that started here in Buffalo. Like the ones that I brought up were Green Jello, who had to change their name to Green Jelly. And
right.
Right, and you had mentioned that you had just worked with somebody that is related to that band.
Danny Carey, who is the drummer, he's known for being the drummer of Tool. He was, after Green Jelly moved out of Buffalo and moved to California, and, he became their drummer once they moved here to L.A. And he has, when Tool isn't touring, he has a side band out here called Volto. And I just did a show with Volto about 4 weeks ago. And it was cool. It was like a little tiny dive club in LA that, if you get 20 people in there, the place looks wall-to-wall packed. And,
wow.
I've seen Volto play a couple times. I saw them play in New Jersey one time, and they're great. They're a lot of fun. They do, mix of originals and covers and stuff. And I didn't even know they were playing. I showed up, and their name was on the marquee right above the name of the band that I was playing in. And I was like, wait. It's like Danny Carey from Tool's band is playing after us, But that's the other thing about living in Los Angeles is you can stumble into those kind of situations where you're like, one of your musical idols, someone that you looked up to, is like sharing the bill with you that night, kind of randomly,
That's very cool. And you don't stop and think about that sort of stuff. Where these bands that come from nowhere little cities, like in the grand scheme of music, you don't really think too much about Buffalo. But then you've got all these different bands that have spawned off somebody that went to Clarence High School or something. It's a small world.
The guys from Green Jelly went to Kenmore West. That's where I graduated from. Now they graduated 10 years or so before me, but that was the same school. And I think Robbie from the Goo Goo Dolls, I think he went to Kenmore West also back in the day. And it was, there's a lot of really incredible talent in Buffalo. The thing that happens, though, is, like, if you want that talent to, come to light and kind of make a mark in the world, unfortunately, you got to leave that town because the industry is New York, LA, and Nashville. And unless you're in one of those markets, you're not going to get, nearly the notoriety or recognition that you would if you were there. You can maintain a certain amount of success to a certain level, but, becoming an arena selling act or something like that, you kind of have to be where that sort of thing can just be picked off the vine at random, Right.
Look what happened with Billy Sheehan and Talus. I mean, Talus was one hell of a band.
Exactly.
And nobody knows.
Billy's out here.
Yep,
Billy's
exactly.
out here being a first call guy.
Exactly. I mean, one of the best bass players, if not the best in the world. I mean, I've always considered him a guitar player with 4 strings.
Yeah. And
just
you know what? Another thing about, like, the random little rinky-dink gigs, there's a jam night here in L.A., in Hollywood, at a bowling alley every Wednesday night, and Billy Sheehan just played there last Wednesday.
Really? Wow.
And it's, it's one of those things, anyone can just stumble across them in town here, where if he goes home to play in Buffalo or do something, it's more of an event. He'll do a clinic or a master class or something that you have to, pay $25 to see him play or something like that. As where here, it's like, oh no, it's no cover, drink specials, get a game of bowling with your friends, and oh, by the way, Billy Sheehan's on stage behind you if you care.
Wow, really?
It's kind of crazy.
That is crazy. I can't even fathom that. That's nuts. That's completely nuts.
It's a different world. So.
All right, well, we're going to take a break really, really quick here, and I've got some green jelly on deck for those guys that...
no way.
It's, oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I got the 3 little pigs right here for you guys on Witchcraft Radio. We'll be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back to Witchcraft Radio on United Pagan Radio, WUPR DB from Buffalo, New York, the coolest place on the planet. Right, Nick?
Right, absolutely. Literally and figuratively.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, although, it was close to 85 degrees here today.
Yeah, you have better weather than we do right now. I was talking to one of my friends back home yesterday, and he was telling me how, it's been nice and in the 80s. The last 3 days out here have been like 65 and super cold and cloudy and, it raining a little bit. You guys have way better weather than we do right now.
Well, maybe that's karma for all you guys bailing and going to California and Florida and everywhere else.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned in one of our contacts in the past couple of weeks here that you played the Western New York Pagan Pride Day. What's that like? Actually. Yeah, what is that like, in contrast to a regular rock show?
I guess it depended on who I was playing with. I think the first couple times I did it, I played with one of the rock bands that I was playing in at the time, and I think at the time the pagan community in Buffalo was a little bit closer knit, a little bit smaller, and so Pagan Pride Day wasn't a huge event or anything like that. It was still relatively small, and the people that you saw there were people that you know and were familiar with. There was no strangers, and they all knew I was playing in rock bands and stuff like that. And one of the bands I was playing in at the time, we used to use a lot of pagan imagery and content in our lyrics and stuff like that. So they just said, "Oh, Nick, why don't you have your band play?" kind of thing. And we set it up like it was a full rock show.
Nice.
We made no difference between we're playing at a park with families and barbecues and incense versus we're playing in a nightclub with, a giant PA and a huge crowd and lights or whatever. We didn't see it as any different at all. A couple other times I did play with like some more mellow acts and stuff like that were a little bit quieter and not like full on rock bands or anything, some acoustic stuff. And that was more like they wanted kind of just entertainment, and I was so tied into the community that again, it was just like, "Oh, Nick, why don't you invite someone you're performing with that you think would be appropriate?"
Right.
But it was fun. It was cool. It was kind of like playing a private show for 40 or 50 of your close friends. Is I guess the best way I can equate it. So.
Yeah, they don't really do a lot out here anymore for as far as musical acts at the Pagan Pride things anymore. They've split it into two parts of the year. In the winter, they'll do something in a convention hall or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the summer they'll just do a little picnic type thing with some vendors here and there, and one person playing guitar.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it was the last time I did it. It was kind of that, whereas some vendors, picnic type atmosphere, acoustic acts. It wasn't. We didn't bring the full on rock show like we did in years past, but that also, like I said, at the time it was a much smaller community, I think, or it was a much tighter knit group. So everyone knew everybody, and it was okay to bring a full rock show to that sort of thing. And then it scaled down to be a little bit lesser and lesser, which I think is probably more appropriate than bringing a rock band out. Pagan Pride Day here in Los Angeles is kind of the same thing. It's huge. There's a lot of vendors. It's an all-day thing, but it's still like the entertainment that they book for it is still like a belly dance troupe or a group that does like hand percussion stuff, or an acoustic guitar act kind of thing. They're not bringing out full rock bands or anything that's a loud decibel level sort of thing, for entertainment anyway.
I've asked this question to other people. We have our own Luna Sheets with the station here runs St. Louis Pagan Pride this year. And I was talking to her and some other people. Would it be in our benefit to have huge Pagan Pride events, kind of like Lollapalooza type size things, or keep them individually small, scattered around the country? What do you think?
That's a good question. I think both, maybe, if there's a way to do both. I like the small little scattered ones that individual private communities have. I went to Pagan Pride Day in Phoenix, Arizona a few years ago, and it was incredible. It was a decent size. They had an indoor area with workshops and entertainment, belly dancers, and acoustic guitar things, and they had vendors outdoors, and they had classes going on and rituals, and the one in Los Angeles has the last couple of years kind of gotten to that same status in terms of size that the Arizona one had. But I like going to those because you see a lot of familiar faces, you see a lot of friends and people you're comfortable with, in addition to seeing what else is out there that you might not have discovered yet. Maybe there's a holistic or occult store that's an hour or two outside of town that you didn't even know about, but they're displaying at one of the events. Then all of a sudden you can get turned on to that. There's a store that's probably 2 hours east of where I live, so I'm never going to go there. But every year at Pagan Pride, I stock up on the oils that they make, the handmade oils and stuff, because I absolutely love the ones that they make and the quality of it and everything. But I normally wouldn't have even known about them had I not gone to a little picnic-type gathering where I was able to sit and talk to the store owner for 10 minutes.
Right.
And then the big festival thing could be really cool, too, if you did it at certain points of the year or something like that. A big equinox festival or something, or solstice festival or something like that could be kind of cool, too. I know down in New Orleans this summer they're having Hex Fest, which Hex is a store in New Orleans, and they have one in Salem. And I've been to the one in New Orleans. It's cool. It's really tiny, super small store, but they're putting on this giant, huge 3-day festival, and it looks amazing. And they actually have a percussion group from Ontario that's coming down to perform, that I'm a fan of. And
nice.
That looks so cool. So having those a couple times a year would be really neat, that people from all over the country can gather at. And then they have their own private community-based ones too. I say do both.
Very cool. I was worried about the doing any kind of a bigger event on a huge stage like that would, just like you said about seeing the different stores that you wouldn't normally know about in that particular area. Well, nobody that's coming to see a big show in a bigger city or a bigger venue is going to go out to different locations in different cities to these different little stores. So why would they even bother advertising?
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of things like that. But
a lot of places have online stores and you can buy things online, but the one thing that I've kind of taken notice of is, at least in the pagan communities, I don't know too many people that do their shopping online. Most of them like to actually physically go to a store, which is really nice. I never buy anything craft related over the internet. If I need, a certain type of oil or incense, or I need, anything, statuary, a book, whatever it is, I go to the store that's, a mile from my house versus going on Amazon. And
yeah, right.
And seeing the amount of business going through the doors of that particular store, I kind of feel like I'm not alone. I'm in not shopping on the internet for that sort of material.
Yeah, I had a New Age store down here in about half an hour, 40 minutes south of the city, and it was just not a good location for something like that, and the internet sales killed me. Yeah, so it's a tough thing. If you don't have the right location and the right people around you that want to buy your product, it's a tough business.
Yeah, location is really a big thing, and what's kind of fueled things out here. I had a really hard time when I first moved to Los Angeles. I had a really difficult time finding the community out here and finding what was going on locally. And not long after I moved here, a store opened up called The Green Man. And I'm going to give them a plug right now because they're wonderful people. The Green Man store opened up in North Hollywood, which is where I currently live, and they have really started developing the community from the inside out, where, you know, I've watched their store over the last couple of years grow and grow and grow, and they do events. They put on classes, they put on public rituals, and the more they do it, the bigger it gets. They just did their big Beltane festival last Saturday. They had 100 people there that normally would not have anything like that to even go to around here, because I haven't seen anyone else doing a public Beltane anywhere. And you know, they've really made a name for themselves in the last 4 or 5 years by doing it that way, by building the community from their store out, versus, you know, having something where they're trying to desperately seek business in an area that maybe doesn't have it or can't sustain it or anything. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Oh. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's jump into another break really, really quick here. I've got some other pseudo Buffalo stuff. Where the hell did it go? I've got too many things stuffed in here that I can't find what I need when I need it, you know? There we go.
Who's the pseudo Buffalo music?
Mr. Big.
Oh, okay. Billy Sheehan stuff.
Billy Sheehan stuff. Billy Sheehan from Buffalo, New York, ladies and gentlemen, with Addicted to That Rush, because it's a lot cooler than any of their other stuff. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. All right, welcome back, everybody, to Witchcraft Radio, live on United Pagan Radio, WUPR DB, from beautiful Buffalo, New York. We were talking during the break, I'm with Nick Mason here, and he said that he has a lot of people out there listening from California and all over the place. And I just wanted to mention that on Thursday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern, we have Luna's Orb produced by Jade Soul Luna, who is in Luna 13, who was just signed to Cleopatra Records. And, not bad for a one-person little dubstep thing.
Yeah.
And, that's our highest-rated show of the week. We have our usual... depending on the day of the week, and if it's nice outside or not, we have usually between 7,000 to 8,000 listeners at any time. And then on Thursday nights, when his show starts, we immediately get up to the 1,400s. It's a 2-hour show, and
wow.
Oh man, and and then after the show's done, them 7,000 people leave. Screw you, we don't want nothing to do with your station. We just want to hear that stuff. And it's a weird mix, because it's it'll be like Indian type chanting mantra music, and then he'll get into some dubstep things that he's created, and then into other like chants to Hecate and Morgana and things like that, and then he'll switch into something else that's like Middle Eastern or Far Eastern. It's a really weird, eclectic mix of stuff, but they eat it up out there.
He's doing it right. That's pretty cool. I'm going to have to tune in and listen to that. And what time? Thursday nights when?
Thursday nights at 10 Eastern. So that'll be like, what, 9, 8, 7 your time?
Yeah, 7 o'clock Pacific time.
Right. I'm very egocentric, and I don't worry about any other time zone but my own. because it really screws me up. All right,
Totally
so
fine. However, it is
Yeah.
nighttime where you are, and it's still daylight where I am right now. So I'm just going to point that out, that it's still daylight.
that's pretty sad. It's just pretty sad that you had to leave Buffalo in the first place. But anyways, how do you incorporate your beliefs or the craft into music, especially when you're doing music that's not pagan related or anything at all?
I've been able to find little ways just for myself to kind of have a reminder, I guess you'd say. One thing that helps a lot is just my daily practice routine. I have my own music studio with drums set up, and I try to go every day and practice for a couple hours. And sometimes sitting there hammering some sort of, pattern or snare drum, rudiment into my head over and over and over again with a metronome is almost like meditation. And I can sit there and my mind can almost wander a little bit while I'm doing this repetitive thing for 20 minutes at a time or something like that, which kind of helps. And I've also got, some little trinkets and things that I put together, little mojo bags or crystals or things that are kind of hidden in road cases and hidden in some of the things that I take on tour and stuff like that. No one knows they're there but me, but they're kind of tucked in and always with me, just to always kind of keep a reminder, because not everything I'm doing is pagan related in terms of music.
Mm-hmm.
Most 99.9% of it isn't anymore. It's being a hired session musician, you're just kind of at the mercy of everybody else, so you're playing something different all the time, and they come from all different backgrounds and may not have any interest in that world at all or a big interest in it, and you just kind of have to roll with the punches on it. But I kind of keep it for myself, and I make sure that I don't forget my roots.
Yeah, here's a side question for me, just to get away from this topic just for a second. As a session musician, when you are hired to work with these, do you just play their parts that they tell you to play, or are you a contributor in the songwriting process?
It depends on who's hiring me. It's both. There are times when I am given creative liberty, and then there's times where I'm given, it's 50-50, where it's like, we want you to do your thing, but here's our notes on it. And then there's other times where I am just playing copycat, and I'm literally learning something that was either programmed with Pro Tools or another drummer recorded or something like that, or played, and I'm given reference tracks, and they say they just want it exactly as is. So it's all over the board. It's about 50-50 in terms of when I get to do my own creative thing versus when it's just dictated for me. So, and a lot of the time too. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, a lot of the time they, when you're playing live with a group, most of the time they have some sort of reference for you to start from anyway, and they say, here's the song, just learn it.
Right. So if you're recording with somebody, is it sometimes just like the old garage days when you're just starting, where give me a beat and you go from there?
I don't run into that very often anymore, actually. If I'm recording, most of the time I'm sent reference material that might be just like a guitar track with a metronome and maybe some scratch, rough, very out of key vocals. And,
so they basically got their idea written, right?
Right. They kind of have it done, and then they just ask me to come put drums to it. And sometimes if I'm lucky, I'll get together with the musicians for an evening before we actually go to the recording studio and kind of hash out parts, and I can say, well, this is what I did for this song, and then they can kind of give me their notes on, no, start a little bit later, or maybe change this like that, or keep this but move this over. And then there's been other times where I've gone to recording studios completely blind, having no idea what I'm about to do, and they just hit record and say, do it. And
Wow.
those ones are actually a lot of fun. Sometimes you surprise yourself with some of the creativity that you get out of that kind of work. But that's not as frequent as doing it the other way, where I'm given scratch recordings and some general notes that say, you know, this is what we have in mind for the song. We want you to do it like this.
Right. Recording time's not cheap.
No,
you know, for some of them people
is.
So it's probably works out the best for everybody there if they give you a framework on what they want, besides just going and freestyle jamming it and enjoying what comes out, right?
Right, exactly. I don't think I've ever, in at least the last, 7 or 8 years, I can't even tell you one instance of I've gotten into a studio and been able to just jam with people. It's always, set up, get everything mic'd, get sounds, okay, record. And I typically give people 2 to 3 takes of each song, no more than that. If they can't get what they need out of me in the first couple takes, then they're not going to get it at all. And we have to move on because they're paying, a blocked rate or an hourly rate for that studio. And, everyone's on the clock. So you're really kind of under a time restraint where it's like, we have 4 songs and you have 3 hours to do it in. So let's get it knocked out as quickly as we can. And most of the time it's like that.
Right. And playing in music is fun, but in a stressful situation like that, how do you deal with it? How do you keep from saying, piss on this, I'm going to go work at UPS?
I think I'm just one of the lucky ones. If I'm playing, I'm always having fun. I've had the benefit of playing for some really great musicians and some really not so great musicians, and it doesn't matter, no matter what the situation is, I find myself having fun. If I'm playing the drums, I'm having a good time, and I can't. It's frustrating as it can be when you have a lot of pressure on you, like in a recording situation or something like that. I always kind of have to take a step back and look around and be like, I'm being paid to play the drums all day today, so why am I complaining?
Right.
Why am I?
Right.
I don't have a manager and a boss and a supervisor breathing down my neck, and I don't have a time card I had to punch, and I'm not wearing a suit, and why would I complain about that? I can't figure out a reason to complain about that at all.
Well, let's get back to the pagan thing before we run out of time.
Yes.
Your pagan backgrounds. I mean, what is your path in a nutshell? Are you solitary? Do you have a group that you work with out there? Were you born into this? Are you someone that just stumbled upon this later in life?
It's like a mishmash of all of it. It's I, at a pretty early age, I'd say, early teens, right when you're kind of discovering the world for yourself finally. You're not completely independent of your family, but you're also not as reliant on them anymore to dictate how life is. So I want to say 12, 13 years old. Some of the things I was told and being taught didn't make sense anymore to me. And I sort of just started kind of rationalizing the world around me in my own terms. There's a lot of monotheistic religions that say there's only one God and he's a man. And in my head, I kept saying to myself, yeah, but there's 2 sexes, there's male and female, so why is God a dude? Why isn't there 2 of them? That didn't make sense to me. If we have 2 sexes on Earth, why would we have that, in heaven as well. It didn't make sense. And so I started kind of rationalizing things for myself. The world works this way because of this, And I discovered in my later teens, that all of these ideas and thoughts that I thought I had came up with on my own just mirrored pagan practices. And I don't even remember how I first got into it, but I got a book on Wicca and was kind of curious. And as I read the book, I was like, damn, everything I thought I came up with on my own turns out somebody wrote down in these books before I got here. And so it just made sense. It just felt very natural. So I went with a solitary Wiccan path, and
Nice.
And was like that at first for a few years, and then I started meeting other people in the local community, and would go to open rituals and things like that. And even though it was an open ritual, it was always like the same 20 or 30 people every single time, so it felt like a closed group, even though it wasn't, because I just don't think the community was that large or yet. And so that's been my path for however many years now. I want to say it's definitely over 10. I want to say 12 or 13 years officially, where I decided I am Wiccan. This is my religious path. I went through dedication and all that stuff, and it's about 12 or 13 years at this point that it's been official. And throughout those years, I've practiced with closed groups. I've practiced with open public groups, with covens. I've bounced around all over the place. And the last few years, my practices have moved more towards traditional witchcraft. I started, reading some of the older books on traditional craft in Britain and things like that, and also started taking classes that were being offered out here, and really gained a lot of insight. And so for the last 2 or 3 years, my practice has been much more of a marriage between traditional witchcraft and Wicca, and I've been able to, for myself anyway, cherry pick the best elements of each of those things as they apply to me in my daily life. So if I need
Excellent.
to cast a circle for some work, I'll cast a circle. If I need to lay a compass for some work, I'll lay a compass.
Excellent. Well, we're almost out of time, and I want to do something that I haven't had the chance to do with anybody else because it wouldn't make any sense. But before we get into that, you have family out here, correct?
Yeah. Almost my entire family is still in Buffalo.
So you do come out to visit, right?
I do. I try to make it at least once a year.
All right. The studio that we have here, very, very nice professional studio. I have a drum set up right behind me. Yes. So when you come to Buffalo, God damn it, you have to stop in here and play some drums for us, and we'll put it on the air.
I would absolutely love that. Where's the studio located exactly? What town?
Arcade.
Okay, I'll make the trip out there. That would be awesome.
You just drive right down Route 16, right down the 400 to Route 16, and you're right there.
Okay. We'll make that absolutely. We'll make that happen the next time I come home. I'm not exactly sure when it is. I usually come back during the summer because I can't stand the cold. However, with my schedule, my performance schedule this summer is a tad full, so I might have to push it into the fall, or maybe come back around the holidays or something like that, which would mean snow. But I haven't been in a Buffalo winter in 6 years, so I think I can handle it at this point. Or maybe I can't handle it at this point.
Well, they say it's like riding a bike. If you can drive in the snow in Western New York, you can drive anywhere.
Yeah, but everybody forgets how to drive. The first snowfall, everybody forgets how they were driving 6 months prior.
Oh,
like
I know
when it rains out here in California, no one knows what they're doing.
That's insane. All right. Word association. Okay?
Oh, okay.
It's going to be a fun little game that I've never had a chance to do with anybody because nobody is from Buffalo with United Pagan Radio. So I'm just going to throw out some geographically tailored names to this, and you just spit out the first word that comes to mind, all right?
Gotcha.
Walden Avenue.
Krispy Kreme.
I thought for sure you were going to say Buffalo Drum Outlet.
Oh, they're not on Walden, though. They moved. They're on Transit Road
they
now.
were. Yeah, they were.
That's where
I
I
keep
bought
forgetting.
my very first drum set, and Paul, the owner of Buffalo Drum Outlet, to this day is still a very good friend of mine. I visit him every time I come home.
Yeah, I forget that you're
I was
younger
thinking,
than
like,
I am.
currently what's there, and that was the only thing that I thought of other than the Galleria Mall.
Yeah. And yeah, I keep forgetting you're younger than I am. I mean, the drum outlet was always on Walden Avenue. It was on that one little corner. Going towards the city.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Oh, geez. I just had it in my head, too. Delaware Avenue.
Delaware Avenue. I'm drawing a blank on the name, but there was a comic book store that was on Delaware Avenue when I was a kid. I went out of business, but I used to go there like every day on my way home from school. And
Yeah.
It's right where Delaware Ave and Delaware Road would split at the municipal building in Kenmore. There was a comic book store right there.
Right.
I used to stop there every day after school.
All right. Oh shit! I had it right on the tip of my tongue too before we got in the comic book store thing. All right, record theater.
Oh, record theater. Wow, across from the one that I was thinking of is across from the college, and I'm totally drawing a blank on the. Is that Main Street?
I think it is Main Street.
On Main?
Yeah,
on Main
and then
Street?
there was the other
North
one down
Buffalo.
on Transit. Yep.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. Yep. All right, one more.
Okay.
Geez. There's just so many that no one will understand, which is the fun part of this game.
Because there's a Tim Hortons on every street corner, everywhere, no matter where you go there.
There is, and Tim Hortons is a bad name here now. It's a cuss word
What?
because Burger King bought Tim Hortons.
When? That's terrible.
That was back in, I want to say, January.
Oh my God. I'm so disappointed.
For those of you that don't know, Tim Hortons is like the Dunkin' Donuts of Buffalo and Southern Ontario.
I make my dad send me bags of it out to California, believe it or not. I have a bag of Tim Hortons in my freezer right now. I had it this morning. I have a Tim Hortons coffee mug in my car. And I was on tour I was touring Canada for a couple weeks last year in July. I went to Tim Hortons every single day on that tour, sometimes twice a day, because it was the only time I was going to be able to get it made fresh.
All right, last one. Buffalo Sabres.
Okay. Greatest hockey team ever, even though we haven't made the playoffs in many years.
Yeah, we suck.
They're my all-time. I'm a diehard fan. I am a diehard Sabres fan. I got a Sabres blanket on my bed. I got a Sabres jersey in the closet. And I've been long considering that as my next tattoo, to get something Sabres related inked on me.
Oh, don't get the slug, whatever you do.
Oh, no, not the slug. I was thinking the bee with the saber, something classy.
Yeah.
The slug is a very dark time that I choose to forget ever happened. Even though we were really, really good at that time. The first year we had the slug, we went to 2 rounds deep in the playoffs. But still, let's just pretend that didn't happen.
That's right. Yeah. and the words "no goal" are a cuss word here in Buffalo too.
I still see bumper stickers. When I come home to visit, I still see no goal bumper stickers. Wide right and no goal.
Yeah. I remember I was there for the wide right, and yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I remember staying up all night watching the Stanley Cup playoffs with the no goal, and I remember just it being the middle of the night in 7 overtimes or whatever it was, and just being so crushed and going to school the next day, and no one wanted to talk. Everyone had bags under their eyes from staying up all night. I think it was in high school at the time, and it was so disappointing.
Yeah, and it was just sick. It was just sick because you could all see that it was not legal. That's ridiculous.
Nope.
And
the refs were just tired and said, "You know what? It's the middle of the night. We want to go home." Terrible.
Very sad. Well, thank you so much, buddy. Nick Mason, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Plug your website one more time, buddy.
It's nickmason.org.
All right. And I would love to have you back on again. And you're definitely going to have to come see us and play for us when you come up here.
Absolutely. We'll definitely make that happen. I will make sure of that. Thank you so much for having me on. It was great.